Now, those of you that have followed the channel before, you all know we went over adrenochrome and what the real purpose of human trafficking was to begin with. Adrenochrome, human plasma. This is what they mean by reptilians are pretty much vampires that eat people. And there's adrenochrome addicts, and whenever you see people with the blacked eye, that is someone that is a adrenochrome addict because they have ingested way too. They have consumed far too much of it. This is astonishing here that someone even mentions the adrenochrome organs. And remember before we looked at the other side of the moon, the dark side of the moon documentary with Iron Sky, Dark Side of the Moon, and they were literally talking about the harvester on the moon. Wow. And look what it also says. So after following, it says, okay, if it is true that they were harvesting adrenochrome and organs there, and it was set up like the underground temple, and etc., were there they would have seen and partook in the harvesting of that stuff. She hasn't commented about the underground temple on the island. She hasn't told the full truth of everything. She has covered up stuff, including knowledge of them actually harvesting adrenochrome and organs. And it's just the copies of the text message here, of course. And then this one here. Just making sure these are just copies, of course. Yeah, these are all just copies. Just copies of the same message. Yeah, these are all copies of the same message, except for this one right here. So I have no idea what Ismaili is random word while typing. I was just told these things. I was never at any of these locations. I believe it though, because as a child, the recruiters that I thought were my friends told me very similar stuff that they actually witnessed. Yes, I know of the survivors that witnessed children being murdered to future control and terrify them into submission. That's some of the MK Ultra projects. I was just told these things. I was okay. So this is the same. This is a copy on the other side. At one time, right, came to RT came to my house with his girl and talked me into going to her place. Okay, so that's just the copy of the top of the thing. Okay, yeah, this is one right here. This is one right here. All right, so this particular email, as you can see, pretty much just confirmed that there were underground tunnels. They were harvesting organs and adrenochrome from these victims. It's just wowzers here. It's just so many different things. Like I said, this is the mention in the different in the Epstein files. All of them contain the 911 mentions of pizza frequently paired with grape soda in bizarre context sent to Epstein. Let's go for pizza and grape soda again. No one else can understand. Go no. Then you have pizza party was great. We had a lot of fun. Stayed late. We all slept in yesterday morning. Your night was good? And thank you. We love to have Blank with us. He is too cute. Have a great week. Thanks for taking the boys for pizza. Was said he had to leave for fun. Was said he had to leave the fun. Was said he had to leave the fun. Hope having a great time skiing. Then yum, that looks good. The boys are really cute too. I just need Blank by 410. He needs a quick shower, then going to doctor for his annual. Let me see. Mr. Epstein would like to see the menu from the pizza place here. Send pizza to Bobby. And we all know what the pizza references is. We all know what Pizzagate means, and what the pizza was just short for, or should I say, a referencing to pedophilia, and pretty much send the kids, send the kids. And there was the picture. Remember the picture we saw in the mansion? We was going through the files, and we couldn't figure out what little girl that was. Turns out people were saying that was little John Benet Ramsey, and that the Epstein files are now bringing to light that Epstein had something to do possibly with the murder of John Benet Ramsey. This is here the throwback. This is the same photo we looked at. We couldn't figure out what this was. This was the photo that was near like the bathroom. It was like the hallway going toward the bathroom we saw. And says throwback to the newly released Epstein files. A particular painting stands out in his mansion. A girl who looks exactly like John Benet Ramsey is sitting on his shoulders. Coincidence? I don't think so. Just traces marked in the blood. There's a picture of him holding John Benet Ramsey. It says the $118,000 bonus that John Benet's father received was from Epstein to pay him off, particularly for doing explicit things to his underage daughter. The rabbit hole goes deeper than we have imagined. So, and as you just saw, we saw proof literally of, examples like Jimmy Fox paying for girls, Donald Trump paying for girls, other officials that were just paying for little girls to have their way with them. Unfortunately, John Benet Ramsey was a victim of that, and her father was paid off by Epstein, allegedly. All right, went over the Bill Gates one. And then there's now supposedly talks of the Civil War. Okay, so this is the other ones. All right. I need to look at these yet. Where's the... Okay, oh, yeah, I wanted to show you guys this one. So someone did like an AI video depicting Epstein, but very accurate. Every time I look into your loving eyes. I can't play the music. I'm just let it go like this. Look at him with Nickelodeon. Look at that. A showing of Pusha T with Harvey and Jay in the background. Look at Chris Tucker right here. Wow. And the Pope. The Dalai Lama. And Ghislaine Maxwell. Looking up to different people to research. Then the research. Now, this one was eerie. That one was eerie. I wish I could rewind it, but it's Instagram. They showed the Island Boys. Those are the Island Boys, and people were talking about how the Island Boys are pretty much cloned. They're not just twin brothers, they're actually clones of each other. And that there were supposed photos of the Island Boys and Epstein back in the day. There's the act. Now this one, I don't know why I don't have it up, but this one was from the email that he had his hand in the pot of Activision, and he's the sole reason. Epstein is one of the main reasons and key reasons behind microtransactions even being in video games. There was an email that circulated around between him and the CEO of Activision, and ironically, I think it was the guy from Call of Duty as well, which I was trying to figure out. I remember the beginning of the year, I was trying to figure out what happened with the CEO of Call of Duty and why all of a sudden his similar to Paul Walker, he had this accident with the Ferrari. And I'm like, it's a kind of a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that the same year that the CEO of Call of Duty dies, Call of Duty itself, the video game, died because so many people had gave it such a bad rep. I think it was Black Ops 7, the very last one they released. People gave it such a bad rep, so they lost the plot. They were done with Call of Duty in general. People were even protesting it, saying we would rather have Battlefield, and people were talking about something. They got refunds for Call of Duty. The same exact year Call of Duty goes into this plunder, the CEO of Call of Duty dies, and then we find out in the Epstein emails that Epstein was in talks with this same CEO as well as Activision, and he's the reason behind microtransactions being in video games. So all the skin buying from Fortnite, the gun buying and skin buying from Call of Duty and all these other video games, even 2K having the microtransactions where you got to build your player, spend $100 and $200 to make your player, all that shit was from Epstein. All of it. Just to name a few. Then this is him with the government. Crazy. The House of Epstein. You got John Benet Ramsey up there. Then you got Johnny Gosh down here, the other child that went missing. And then you have the different faces on the wall of different people that were supposed to, like, this is just wild. And of course the frogs being around it showing reptilians. And then the experiment chair. Crazy video here. Absolutely crazy video here. But yeah, now there's reports of supposedly he's actually alive. There was something that was in the Epstein files where the prison guard actually said that they saw him being escorted out of the actual prison, and that it was a fake murder that happened with him. There's actually a picture going around of let me see, of is this Epstein? Let me see. Where is it? Where's the picture that's going around? Here it is. Now, supposedly people are saying that this photo is actually made with Gemini AI. And it's not a real picture of Epstein. But a lot of people are also saying that it possibly could be Jeffrey Epstein still alive, and that the AI logo was put on there on purpose to throw people off. But like, there's the prison guard that said that they saw him being escorted out. Let's see if I can find that one. Prison guard saw Epstein. I'll just get rid of this one. I'll just pull up this one. Prison guard claims Epstein was removed from prison alive. See, not saying anything after this. Please do not try to dox me. But last night at 4:15 count, they took him. They took him to a They took him to medical. They took him to medical in a wheelchair, front cuffed, but not one triag nurse says they spoke to him. Next thing we know, a trip van shows up. We do not know reason on the weekends unless a judge orders it. Next thing we know, he's put in a single man cell and hangs himself. Here's the thing: the trip van did not sign, and we did not record the plate number. And a guy in a green dress military outfit was in the back of the van, according to the tower guy who let him through the gate. You guys, I am shaking right now, but I think they switched him out. This is a court order forcing 4chan to hand over records identifying the poster as prison guard, Roberto Guajava. This is the one I could not see or make out. I'm still trying to find this particular one. But this is pretty much the same statement that you just saw. This is the guy pretty much claiming that the prison guard claiming that his Epstein's body was switched out, and the one that we saw hanging was a fake body. So many of these different things that are coming out right now. So many different things that are coming out right now. And of course, I should have brought it back full circle. The World Economic Forum also admitted COVID-19 was a trial run for mask compliance. Guys, if this doesn't show you, again, this even posting right here, the United States is now officially in first phase of civil war. With all the things that are going on, you have even what happened with Alex Preddy last week. Similar to happened with Nicole. Yet another person was shot down by ICE in broad daylight as they were maced and sprayed. And literally killed in broad daylight. Like I said,
here's the full video.
We are in a different time right now, guys. I just want everybody to be very aware of the time that we are in right now. They are pretty much, they don't give a fuck anymore. I've said this time and time before on the pod. They don't give a fuck anymore. We are at the breaking point where things are going to just start happening, and I want everybody to mentally be prepared for all these things that are going to be happening now. Let me see. They released a video. Yeah, we don't gotta watch this whole thing. Like I said, when you think about what actually went on with this whole shit, it just seems it just gets even worse and even more creepy and more fucked up. But then there's this, of course, like I said, and this is one of the meat and potato I've been talking to you guys about, was the devil worship, the satanic worship of Baal. They found files of them talking about sacrificing babies and sacrificing them to a certain deity by the name of Baal.
The final tranche of confidential files associated with convicted child sex offender Jeffrey Epstein has ignited a new and deeply unsettling controversy on social media. Among the documents released on January 30th, One particular record involving a money transfer quickly drew attention from online users and investigators alike. In that document, Epstein reportedly requested that an amount of over $11,000 be wired to a bank account identified under the unusual name Baal, which immediately raised suspicion. Screenshots showing the alleged payment instructions circulated widely on X, where users began sharing theories involving possible links to so-called demonic or occult practices. One user claimed, quote, Epstein named his bank account Baal. Baal is a demonic being that was worshipped in ancient Israel by some Hebrews before they converted to Judaism. Child sacrifice is a ritual of Baal worshippers, usually through burning, like Israel did to Gaza. Archaeological discoveries have found thousands of urns with cremated infant and small children's remains. Now we have evidence of Epstein's circle killing and even eating children. Unquote. Another X account said, quote, Jeffrey Epstein had a bank account named Baal and asked someone at JP Morgan to wire him over $11,000. Baal is a demonic figure and an enemy to Jesus, as written in the Holy Bible. Biblical scholars were quick to note that Baal is repeatedly referenced in the Old Testament, appearing as a name associated with ancient deities worshipped in the Middle East. Experts explained that Baal worship in antiquity was often characterized by acts of sensual devotion and, historically, involved practices such as ritualistic prostitution. Historians added that the worship of Baal reached its height during the reign of King Ahab and Queen Jezebel in ancient Israel, a period often cited as the peak of the cult's influence. According to ancient texts and biblical commentary, followers of Baal were even believed to sacrifice their firstborn children in a bid to appease the deity and gain favor. These religious references found in the Epstein case documents quickly fueled widespread online claims suggesting possible connections to human sacrifice and infant offerings. Some reports circulating online went further, alleging that certain documents described a disturbing event where infants were mutilated and consumed during a supposed private gathering. This prompted renewed scrutiny of Epstein's background and faith, given that he was born into a Jewish family, leading to further online speculation. Adding to the controversy, some social media users claimed that Epstein's private island contained a temple-like structure, which they theorized was dedicated to the figure Moloch. Online commentators described Moloch as a mythical entity known in ancient lore as an entity associated with child sacrifice and desires granted through horrific offerings. However, others dismissed the entire episode concerning the name Baal, arguing that it could simply be a typographical error, possibly meant to read bank on the transfer form.
That Baal and Jesus were the same person? Is that? Can we find that? That's crazy. Noaz, you hit it right on the head too. With Moloch, you hit it right on the head. Well, she only got the same birthday. She only got the same birthday. But at the same time, it would also make sense, right? If we're talking about being the same person, because Christianity was false. Christianity is a false religion made up for political and power control. So it would make sense that the head of that, right? The head, the head person that you would want to be worshiping Christianity is Jesus, and Baal is actually, and I'm looking it up right now. It says they are born the same way and died the same exact way. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It makes perfect sense that that would be the same exact person, and that Jesus was someone that was actually made up. Because I've always heard about that and read up on it too, that Jesus was someone that was kind of made up. And like I said, it makes perfect sense when you think about, the whole falsification of Christianity to begin with and how they made up Jesus Christ. It makes perfect sense with Baal and Jesus being the same exact person. So I can see where that would come from. I'm not going to say it's true, but I could definitely see where that could be true, is what I'm saying. Like I said, Noaz, you hit it right on the money with the Moloch one, though.
The released files also revealed that Epstein had managed to acquire 3 sacred cloth pieces known as kiswa, which traditionally cover the Kaaba, Islam's holiest shrine in Mecca. According to a report by Middle East Eye, Pieces of the cloth were flown from Saudi Arabia to Epstein's property in Florida via a special air shipment. Each year, the kiswa is replaced with a newly woven one, and the previous sections become highly sought-after religious artifacts, prized for their spiritual significance. Documents indicate that the delivery of these kiswa pieces reached Epstein's residence in 2017, months after he had officially registered as a sex offender in the United States.
All right. Evil Epstein. Evil Epstein. I know it's getting kind of late here. So, without further ado, we're going to get into this Jeffrey Epstein interview where he specifically talks about the banking system, the health organizations, as well as... Yes, I definitely do. I definitely do know the background. All the religions are the same story for different people. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Religion was pretty much used as a form of control. And that's not just in the United States. That's just worldwide. That's what I said when we broke it down, part of Project Bluebeam is the showing of all the religious deities that were used for worship for the control. So you're going to, like I said, you got Buddha, Muhammad, pretty much Muslims ain't going to see anybody. That's why I keep getting that. Muslims ain't going to see Muhammad. They're not going to see nobody. So you got Buddhists, you got Jesus. I can't think of who the other ones would be. I'm not too sure who Indians, who else would be considered with that, right? You got the Buddhists, you got Jesus. There's somebody else I'm trying to think of. There's somebody else I'm trying to think of that I'm missing here. That's going to be shown with the worships as far as religion. If you think about all the major religions, it's pretty much all the people that you worship in all the major religions that you're going to see. So it like I said, it just makes perfect sense when I'm hearing that Paul and Jesus were the same person. Because like I said, it goes along the line of the falsification of Christian. When we watched the movie Angels and Demons, and we literally saw how the guy was like, he was just so enraged. He just said, Krishna, that's another one, Krishna. He was so enraged that he just said, fuck it. He just went up in flames. He burned the scriptures and burned himself with the scriptures. Once he realized what the actual truth was, that he had been worshiping a lie the entire time. He devoted his life to a lie, pretty much. When he found out that Christianity was completely false. So, without further ado, we're going to get into this Jeffrey Epstein interview as well. Because like I said, he breaks down the World Health Organization, his ties in that. He talks about quantum physics. He talks about pretty much how souls are transferred and how it's even seen. You can definitely, he talks about the world being a simulation. Remember we was talking about some days that we're living in a third dimensional world in a simulation. He talks about a simulation, everything. Illuminati, this is everything. Everything. This is now the crazy thing is this is a 2-hour interview, but this is the hour where he gets deep into the main meat and potatoes of things. I'm going to play that here now. If you guys would like to donate at all, anything at all helps. Anything at all helps at all. I do have a small $50 goal for the week for the pod, as I always do. I don't always meet it, but at the same time, I do try to at least make the $50 goal for the pod to continue doing it. Because like I said, I don't necessarily get paid. These podcasts are not monetized in any kind of way. So like I said, if you guys can help towards the $50 goal that we have each week, I would greatly help. I would greatly appreciate it. The Cash App is right there on the left-hand side of the screen, as well as I do have the PayPal in there now as well. And as I play this interview, I'm going to put it in the chat as well. If you guys would like to donate, that's fine. I would greatly appreciate it. If not, I do understand as well. But like I said, we are trying to meet a small $50 goal. It's not as big as other podcasters, but like I said, I do try to meet it though. But without further ado, let's get into this interview with Jeffrey Epstein.
Most important parts of business were really now going to calculations. So it's not only mathematics, but it's things that could be calculated. So he said to me, would you like to be on the Trilateral Commission? Now, I was 32 years old. I said, great. And he said, well, you have to fill out this application So they have you buy. They also make statements like, we want more money, but we don't want more debt, which just shows a misunderstanding of what money at its. So they don't sort of mid-70s. The most important thing was your name. If you were Rockefeller, you already were considered to be brilliant.
Welcome to the sacrificed.
Before we get into the deep stuff, let's give some basics or some things I want to do, inquire from the others. Walk me through the Santa Fe Institute. What was it about the time of the math? And this was in the late 90s. So they're not going to hear me on this part, right? We're going to do it both ways?
It will not be on the video, but we do have you recorded.
Fine. Remember, when you're answering on these questions, I'm not in the shot, and they're never going to hear my voice. So a little bit you got to repeat in your answer, you got to repeat what my question was.
Oh,
a little bit.
Okay.
Santa Fe Institute. Why, when you're at the top of your game on Wall Street, do you decide to finance, which was at the time, or endow, or become the donor or sponsor, however you want to say it, for what was considered the most cutting edge group of mathematicians in the world? Action.
So Santa Fe Institute in the late 80s, early 90s, I was interested, I was on the board of Rockefeller. So that starts, Rockefeller University, formed by John D. Rockefeller to sort of give back to the community. It's east side of Manhattan, except it was old. It was sort of old-fashioned. They were talking about medicine, and medicine by itself was again subject to the ideas of science. They were trying to use science to find cures for disease. And I said, no, we need to do something different. We need to start interdisciplinary work. In most...
How did a schmuck like you get on the board of Rockefeller? What year was that?
I don't remember. Late, I think 89 and 91.
So that's one of the most prestigious research places in the world, correct?
Yes.
Okay, how did a guy like you get on the board of a blue blood, internationally known, hard research, Nobel Prize winners all over the place? How do they pick a guy like you, a trader from, or basically some guy from Bear Stearns?
Good question. So I was asked to be on the board of Rockefeller, and I think it was, I was on the board of Rockefeller, there was a money manager who said, Rockefeller needs someone with financial expertise because the university is growing and there's lots of new things. You have to, again, we go back to the original discussion the last time. Up until the mid-80s or sort of mid-70s, the most important thing was your name. If you were Rockefeller, you already were considered to be brilliant. If you were head of General Motors, it was your reputation. It was who you knew, who your family was, what was your character. And then in the mid-70s, basically, if you remember, you probably had a calculator. It was very advanced in those days to have a Texas Instrument calculator, where it could, by putting in the numbers, it would multiply for you to do square roots. And that was the first, and everyone who had a calculator was already advanced on Wall Street. A simple calculator, almost like your accountant. The most important parts of business were really now going to calculations. So it's not only mathematics, but it's things that could be calculated. Reputation couldn't be calculated. I could give you, are you a 10 on a reputation scale, an 8? What does it mean to have a measurement of your reputation? We'll get to that later. But places like Rockefeller needed someone to say, look, we're entering a different world where numbers and the numbers of companies, portfolio management was going to be balanced. It was going to be statistical. Jeffrey, could you come on the board? Potentially sit on the finance committee, Nancy Kissinger and a bunch of other people. And David Rockefeller and I got along very well. He was this unbelievable human being. Respectful to everyone. He introduced his driver as his colleague, not his driver. He would never say, this is my driver. He said, it's my colleague. And David started to explain to me world politics. So David would say, Jeffrey, money is going to be sort of the most important things. People don't understand money. You seem to have this knack for money. I said to David, tell me about your life. What was the worst and the best part of your life? So David said, when I grew up, everyone knew I was a Rockefeller. They didn't know that my father told me he would not leave me a dime. No money. But every time we went out to eat, me and my 5 friends at school, they would leave me the bill. They would expect me to pick up the check because I was a Rockefeller. And he said, I was chairman of Chase Bank. And he said, I remember like it was yesterday, one of the headlines in Time magazine said, David, please fire yourself. So he thought that there was a world that existed that would be a combination of both politics and business and leadership. What do I mean? He formed something called the Trilateral Commission. The Trilateral Commission is some spooky stuff. People said it was something, the Illuminati, there's some mystery about it, people that ran the world. It was politicians, but David said most countries, the politicians get elected for 4 years or 8 years, separate from the royal families in England or in the Middle East. Someone's there for 4 years and then they're not there anymore. The most important people to have stability and consistency would be businessmen. So he formed this Trilateral Commission of businessmen and politicians from 3 major continents. So it was the North Americans, the Europeans, and the Asians. So he said to me, would you like to be on the Trilateral Commission? Now, I was 30 years old, 32 years old. I said, great. And he said, well, you have to fill out this application so they have your bio. And I looked at the list of people, and it was Bill Clinton, former president of the United States, Paul Volcker, every great leader in America, the Asians, the Japanese, and with a very long description of their history. And they asked me to fill in what I would like to have written. And I wrote Jeffrey Epstein, comma, just a good kid, which I thought was funny, nobody else did. So in answer to your question, at that time I recognized around the world that monies and currencies were not really well understood. But again, it was only numbers. So numbers, and I'll get to the fact that it was bad thinking. Numbers are very good.
Are most people that you meet, even on Trilateral Commission, when you meet most people, do you find most leaders financially illiterate, economically illiterate? Most political leaders don't come out of a background of finance. Most political leaders come out of a background of being popular. So in some of the countries, in some of the African countries, for example, they might have been a military person. They were a general. In some of the African countries, they might have been a disc jockey. Or in our country, they would have been an actor. The knowledge of money they don't have expertise, they have no degrees in finance. They really, and this is one of the major problems, their expertise, if they have any financial knowledge, is of their own checking account or bank account and filling in their own taxes. So many world leaders who don't really have a financial underpinning make fundamental errors when it comes to money on a country or institutional level. Let me give you an example. If you, Mr. Bannon, if I said your assets increased last year, you'd say, that sounds pretty good. And I said, what does that mean to you? You'd say, well, I have more money. I guess I'm wealthier. I'd say yes. And if your debt increased, would you feel wealthier or poorer? You'd say, well, I don't want to have increased debt. I don't like the idea of that sound, increased debt. Now,
That and world leaders understand when their assets go up, they feel better. However, institutions like banks, things that people don't really understand are financial underpinnings of banks. When I say your bank, Mr. Bannon, you have the Bannon Bank, you doubled your assets. Sounds good, but what does it really mean? It means people owe you more money. You don't have any more money. What? Yeah. A bank's assets are how much it is owed by other people. That's crazy. So if the bank goes from a $2 billion of assets to $10 billion, it means people owe it an additional $8 billion, but their assets have gone up. So the terminology of assets and liabilities is different for banks. It's not natural. And what most people, and you ask questions about world leaders, there's many people, I think your old boss Mercer understood, there's a fundamental part of money which is called fractionalized banking.
Yes, this is a real interview. This is a real exclusive interview from Jeffrey Epstein. DJ Vlad posted one, and Sacrifice posted the other part of it where he was dressed in this white shirt here.
And fractionalized banking is something that finance people understand, and the people on the street, and when I say people on the street, that's where I was.
Yes, that's another thing too, right? So he's pretty much breaking it down how, if anything, he got around these people by pretty much being connected to see if the Illuminati was even real. He pretty much put himself out there saying he infiltrated the Illuminati, if you will. Remember how they were saying that he was potentially an Israeli agent, and that was one of the main reasons why they killed him, is because he got so deep into pretty much how Michael Jackson had control over Sony. This gentleman had control over everything that was going on in the world simultaneously because of the different connections that he was able to obtain just by simply getting into Freemasonry and the Illuminati through his connections. As he said before, they showed you this big application that had all these different high political figures and celebrities that were on it. He was able to get into the Illuminati without necessarily being in the bloodlines.
When I started on Wall Street, would find it impossible to
Yes, the spook that sat by the door. I like how you put that, Raymond.
believe. Impossible. Why? Bannon Bank, I give you $1, just one single dollar. In our system of banking, I would say, okay, Steve, I gave you $1. How much can you lend out to your friends? And your natural reaction would be probably something less than $1 because I want to keep something in my pocket. The way our system works is if you as a bank are holding my dollar, you can lend out an additional $8 or $9. No, it's impossible. I only have $1, Jeffrey. We have something called fractionalized reserves, which is if you have 1, you can lend out 9. That's the way our system works. And so not only do world leaders not understand banking, but the man on the street, my father who worked in the park department, it would be beyond his imagination that people could lend out more money than they actually had in their pocket. Next question.
Wait, how did this, in understanding that, when you get on something like the Trilateral Commission, you're on the board at Rockefeller, which is the most advanced research. You get brought into the Trilateral, which is the elite of the elite. How, since you're only at that time
30-something years old.
8 years from teaching at Dalton, right? You're at Dalton.
No, 10 years.
10 years
right.
teaching at Dalton.
Yes.
Walk us through. I mean, put us in the room. Walk me through exactly what it felt like. What it felt like being on the board at Rockefeller. You got these Nobel laureates, and you're sitting there making decisions, and you start to meet these people at Rockefeller. And you start to meet these people at the Trilateral Commission. What did it feel like?
It's a great question. So what did it feel
That's
like?
what I'm in the business of asking.
What did it feel like meeting some of these people like Kissinger or Rockefeller? And those were two extraordinary people. But in general, I think the question, the people on Wall Street, I tell the story, the first day, one of the first days when I was in Wall Street, someone said to me, would you like to buy ATV? And I was looking in the brochure and I couldn't figure out what stock had a symbol of ATV. And when I finally said, well, I can't find it. And they said, what's the matter with you? Do you want to buy ATV? Which is, he was selling hot televisions, stolen televisions from the floor of the American Stock Exchange, referred to in common parlance as the televisions fell off the truck. So I knew what that phrase meant from Coney Island. But what I found was most people, be it in business, in normal life, or in the world leaders, don't really understand money. It is something they think about. They have a sense of what it is. They certainly want more of it. But they also make statements like, we want more money, but we don't want more debt, which just shows a misunderstanding of what money at its core really is.
Exactly. Because of his knowledge of everything. Because of how much they actually need him. It's funny if we're thinking about things coming full circle, right? With the pod here, an example, how Jay-Z had the jacket, "The Game Needs Me." Very similar with Jeffrey Epstein. Very similar with Jeffrey Epstein. They can't get rid of him. They only made it look like they killed him because of how much power that he actually has still. But how much he's able to still do for them behind the scenes. So if you look here, right? Let me show you guys this. This is just on Google. What he's talking about here is the fact that Jeffrey Epstein cultivated an association with David Rockefeller in the 1990s as a calling card to gain access to elite social and financial circles. And the method included donations, personal meetings, and the false claims. Epstein falsely claimed he managed money for the Rockefeller family. A person involved in managing the family's wealth stated Epstein never even pitched them on any investments, which we all know is not necessarily true as far as he didn't pitch them on any investments. He's talking about them right now. But at the same time, his main importance was his ability to facilitate the money. If you're listening closely, his main key reason for them keeping him on is how to facilitate the money and how to actually control the populace. He was pretty much the brains behind majority of the agendas that are being pushed. Like I said, if you're talking about what's being pushed with the health organization agenda, for example, in the pandemic and COVID-19 and how they were able to make money off of the pandemic. Things like that is why Jeffrey Epstein is very important. How the NBA works and how it works very similar to even I said before WWE with the scripting of certain things and how certain superstars are put to certain plateaus like LeBron James, Michael Jordan, rest in peace, Kobe Bryant. Those things of that nature. He had his hand in that pot too. As far as sports goes, he called the shots with sports. He called the shots with banking. Everything. That is why they needed Jeffrey Epstein and still do.
So most people don't, they want to make it, they want to save it, but to understand it intimately is not a normal characteristic.
At the first trilateral or something?
Yeah, good.
Just give me approximate. You joined the Trilateral Commission.
I think it might be 90.
And we'll be able to show we'll pull down the chart of where your name was, but just give me roughly when it was.
I think it could be 90. I don't remember.
Okay. Let's say early 90s.
Yes.
When you got on the Trilateral Commission and had the first, do you remember where the first meeting was?
It was in Tokyo.
In Tokyo. And at what hotel?
I would like to say the Hilton, but it's probably not.
And it's a 3-day, 4-day? Give me some
3-day event. And
walk me through the whole thing.
Speeches.
It starts with a dinner. Just walk me through it.
It was boring.
You couldn't possibly think it was boring. It's bullshit.
It was boring.
You had to be stars in your eyes.
No.
Did you fly over privately?
Yes, but it wasn't my plane.
So it didn't count?
No.
You fly over.
Yes.
And
it was
who were the first? Like when you first met those leaders, you had to be wowed.
No.
You're 10 years out of Coney Island.
No, I'm not wowed by people of position. I'm wowed by people of great ideas. And I don't care if it's the bus driver. I don't care if it's the student I had who has teeth coming out
Well,
every
these
direction.
guys have to have great ideas. They're the leaders of the three great continents of the world: North America, Europe, and Japan.
No, many of these world leaders become world leaders because they're popular and they were able to get votes, or they were able to convince people to vote for them. I learned later. Many of them were just good at what they did in terms of politics. Remember, world leaders are politicians in general. They're not scientists, they're not intellectuals, they're not great thinkers, they're great politicians.
At the first Trilateral Commission meeting that you remember in Tokyo, sometime in the early 90s, do you remember what were the big issues of the day that they were talking about, and what did you think about it?
Yeah, in fact, it was funny because they were talking about inflation, and they were worried that what would happen, how do you control inflation? And as a mathematician, I didn't understand the concept. I don't understand the concept today. How's that possible? Well, when you talk about most things to do with money, money is meant to be local. It's US dollars, then I understand what it means. If inflation, it means my dollar today inflates, and it doesn't buy as much as it did a couple of years ago. The prices go up. It seems that everything is great, but in fact my dollar is shrinking in value.
If you, and you're the financial genius here, I'm just a lowly M&A guy.
Sure. If you let me finish the thought.
Go ahead.
So if you're in America, you can feel inflation. Your salary's gone up, but you can't buy the same car. In fact, it starts to feel weird because the value.
That's why I wanted to ask the question then. This is my point.
Sure.
The people who live and breathe this, the central banks, have been haunted by the specter of inflation since the late 70s.
Yes.
First off, tell our audience, how did that happen? The two great financial events in the 20th century, I'm not going to get to the 21st, were the Great Inflation in Europe after World War I, the Great Depression, the hyperinflation in Germany that led to the rise of Hitler, and then this inflation in the mid-70s. Before you go to explain inflation, why is the specter of inflation always the central thing in central bankers' minds?
Because it goes back to the first concept I said, the weird concept of fractionalized reserves. The system is not well understood. And most systems, in fact, are not well understood. We don't know how our digestive system.
Stop. This is impossible.
I understand.
This is impossible. The world banking system, the world currency system, the world monetary system has to be so well understood by the Greenspans of the world and the Bernankes of the world and you, right? The currency traders, the guys making billion-dollar bets every day. The legendary guy on Wall Street in the late 90s, Salomon Brothers.
Lou Ranieri?
No, the guy that wrote the money.
Michael Lewis? Liar's Poker?
Yeah, Liar's Poker. Who's that about? That great trader.
Lou Ranieri.
No, it wasn't Lou, the guy that ran the desk. That eventually ran the hedge fund that went long-term capital.
Yes, I don't remember.
Who's the guy?
I want to say, I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Lou Ranieri is big, but those guys have to understand the system perfectly.
No, they don't understand the system. They understand the local part of the system. So, for example, why is not only inflation, most bankers are terrified if the public understood that the bank really doesn't have their money at any one time. It's one of the things during the Depression, there were runs on the bank. The reason the banks don't keep much money in the actual bank is they assume that not everyone's going to want their money on the same day. So it's not really the fear of inflation. The fear is a run on the bank. Everybody wants to take out something that doesn't really exist. Inflation is tied to interest.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? They don't want to take out something that doesn't actually exist. Did you hear that?
It's a more complicated example. But when your money doesn't buy the same amount of product this year than it did last year, if it buys less and less, like it happened, you used the term hyperinflation. There's certain countries that are not managed well, like in Africa at the current, a $100 billion bill, $100 billion bill in Zimbabwe is worth 1 American cent. That's the perfect example of hyperinflation. It goes up, it doubles every day. So people are afraid that their value in the system starts to break down. But so if I said to you, does your doctor understand your body system? You'd say, well, I hope so, because I want him to keep me healthy. But you could have a kidney infection, you could have a heart attack, you could have a broken knee. There's lots of pieces of this system. And in fact, when you ask the question, very few doctors understand your entire body. There's a specialist for your knee, there's a specialist for your polynoidal cyst, there's a specialist for your head, and now we have specialists in different areas. So and I'm going to get to your first question about Santa Fe Institute. The world economy and your body are both comprised of little systems interacting with each other and making one big system.
This is what's stunning for all the little guys out there, the populist movement, the little guys that haven't had a pay raise in 30 years. They think that these elites, have everything. The guys in the room making the decisions, the party at Davos guys. You're sitting there, you don't think many people today really understand the complexity and really all the moving pieces and how they interconnect to the world's financial system.
No, not only don't they understand the complexity, and that goes back to Santa Fe Institute was an attempt of trying to see if there was a way to mathematize, formularize, or algorithmically understand what the term complexity means. That goes back to the original question. Complex systems are complex by definition. But there's not necessarily, it's not one level of complexity. We might say, well, our fingers are complex, the movements, the muscles of our hands, but it's not as complex as the blood system. Now I have a circulatory system. I have systems on top of systems, so that there's no one group or person that really understands the way the body works. There's no one group that understands the way the financial systems work. You might understand U.S. bond market. Now you've asked about the trader, long-term capital. That was a bond fund, very small part of this very complex system. So the goal of the Santa Fe Institute was to see, is there a way to get in, somehow understand how complex systems interact? Fast forward, Steve, to today, where Google and these other engine companies, the other tech companies, are trying to build artificial intelligence. The strangest thing that they've found, one of the strangest things, is that the systems that they design, this artificial intelligence, which a lot of people have heard about, is they design a bunch of systems. They're called neural nets. Terms simply taken out of brain work, neurons in the brain. Nets because they actually look like a net. They put in some inputs. The computers work, spit out an answer. Sounds normal to you. It's because you're thinking about that calculator you had in 1976 on your desk. When you ask the person who designed the system, how did it come to that answer? How did your neural net, can you show me the calculations? They say, no, we don't know. We don't know how the thing we designed actually came up with that answer. That's pretty strange. They take the same neural net now and they put it in front of a video game. No learning, nothing. They said to the computer, they say, sit in front of your video game and learn how to play. It seems the computer learns better than any human in history, faster than any human in history, beats any human in history, but when you ask the designer how did it do it, no one knows.
Doesn't he sound like the architect in the Matrix right now? Very similar to how the architect was talking to Neo, in a sense. breaking down how the world and it actually worked and functioned? Doesn't it sound like this man was way ahead of talking about how artificial intelligence was even going to play out? Yes, exactly. What a lot of people have always thought about and wondered with the system, does it even actually know what it's doing? Do these higher up politicians, do these bankers, do any of these doctors, do any of them actually know what they're doing, or they're just going by what their degree says they know what they're doing? You know what I mean? They don't actually know how they even arrive at some of the results that they come to with any of the practices that we're talking about here, right? Like a perfect example, like what he's talking about, a lot of people don't even understand how they come up with certain calculations, like for interest for insurance. They just know that the interest for insurance, the rate they come up with, is beneficial to them more than it is to you. In a nutshell is what I'm getting at. A lot of the rules and regulations that are made up, or even requirements, are literally that. They're just made up to benefit the system. Yes, all the equations have to be solved, but majority of them are just made for the benefit of the system, because of the fact that they don't necessarily know how the calculations themselves even arise. So because you also don't know, the person, the consumer doesn't know, they are able to make up these regulations and requirements as well.
It just did it. Just the first little touch of things that we already have gotten to a place where we don't understand it, and we built it.
On Sunday afternoon, September 14th, 2008, where were you?
Sorry?
It was the night they put Lehman Brothers in bankruptcy in London.
I was in jail.
Seriously?
Yes.
So the financial crisis of 2008 happened when you were in jail?
Yes.
Oh, this is going to be so amazing. This is going to be so amazing. I take it you didn't have your Wall Street Journal dropped off to you in the morning, your Financial Times.
No.
How did you hear about because I want
I forgot about this, but yes.
I'm trying to this is going to be amazing. Let's go back and do that again. Sunday afternoon, because I want to find out about people, the geniuses understanding the complexity of the financial system. Because I think the best example we have is the financial crisis, the crash of 2008. Sunday afternoon, September 14th, I think it was, 2008, is when they were working feverishly in Midtown Manhattan at the Lehman Brothers offices and at various law firms around town, and with the Secretary of Treasury in the Federal Reserve, what they're going to do with Lehman. They decided they weren't going to save it. And so they prepared to put it into bankruptcy at the open of the market in London the next day. How did you hear about what was going to happen to Lehman Brothers, and what did you immediately think when you heard that it was going to be put into bankruptcy?
I'm glad you asked that question. I was in solitary confinement September 14th. And again, some of the public stories about the wonderful time I had in jail and my work release, which didn't come till months after. I'd been there since June in an 8x10 cell with a bed in the back, a 6-foot bed in the back, a chrome sink with a toilet attached to it, and a little piece of metal sticking out that was supposed to act as a table. Now, since I was in jail, there were no books. Why? There's no library. No library, but you're in jail. No, I was in jail, not prison. So in jail, I was in a place that was called the Special Housing Unit, which is for the roughest, toughest, meanest people. They had put me there, they said, for my own protection. So I was in a 8x10 cell with a little slit in the door where they would serve my food on a a tray about 9 inches by 4 inches. And then as soon as I finished eating, they'd take the tray and close it down. And one of the guards said, do you understand there's Wall Street's crashing. I'm worried about my pension fund. What should I do? And I said, sorry, Wall Street's crashing? What's happened? And he said, there's some crisis and some companies are going bankrupt. I said, are you sure? And he said, yeah, it's all over the papers. We're all terrified we're going to lose our life savings because we have either a 401k or our pension funds. We don't know anything about money. Mr. Epstein, can you tell us, like, what's going on? Am I going to be able to afford my children's education? Am I going to be bankrupt like this company called Lehman Brothers? And there's another company in the front page today called Bear Stearns. Oh, no, I said. Why? Because that's the company I was a partner in. And in fact, that was a company I had a very large investment in. So, as a great story, I didn't have my Wall Street Journal, but in the early mornings, you're allowed to make 2 phone calls, collect. And when you pick up the phone, you can dial a number, and when the person picks up, they say, you're getting a call from the Palm Beach County Jail. Will you accept reverse charges? And the person either says yes, and the call goes through, or the person says no. The person I had called was Jimmy Kane, the president of Bear Stearns. And I said, tell me what's going on. And so that my knowledge of the financial crisis happened with Jimmy, who was at the center of the storm, telling me about what Lehman had gone under, and they were trying to figure out a way, should they bail out Bear Stearns?
Did it strike you at the time of...
So that's why they said it was going to be an interesting conversation already in the story, because how does this man, during the financial crisis of 2008 and Wall Street crashing, how did this guy be one of the sole reasons of it being reconsolidated and, and saving the day? How was he able to save Wall Street from jail is crazy.
The mess you had made of your life to be in a situation that you're one of the greatest financial minds in the world, looked at by world leaders and asked their, your thinking by the most prominent and important people in the world. And here you are in solitary confinement. You can't even...
Yes, real quick, Kushness. They do have a, I'll show that real quick. There is a picture going around. Let me see if I can find it for you guys real quick. What? Epstein office, trap door with ladder. Yeah, this the one right here. This is it right here. He had a secret door. This was in Epstein. This is on Epstein Island. He had a trap door that led out to the ocean. Which again just begs the question of, like I said, is this guy dead or alive? A lot of things point to him actually being alive. Yes, you're listening. The fact that they didn't even really have our money to begin with in there just lets you further know how much control they actually have over us, over our minds, over our mental. The fact that they were the inflation scare was if everybody was to call in and say, hey, I want my money out of this bank. Oh, well, we can't necessarily do that. It doesn't exist.
You got to make a collect call to somebody. Did it strike you at the time how all the threads of your life had come together and put you in a position, or you had put yourself in that position?
No.
So it never struck you when you had to make one of your 50% of your collect calls that day, you call the president or the head of the CEO of Bear Stearns, the biggest financial event in your life is taking place, of which one, every important person in the world would be seeking your opinion. Number two would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to apply your craft. Number three, it would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make money if you were smart, and obviously you're smart. You're telling me here, truthfully, that it never hit you at all of how you'd ended up in a place where you had to make a collect phone call from a jail cell that was 6x9 with a steel bed and your food being passed into a slot.
The question you want to ask is, who was the other call to?
Okay. Who was the other call to?
The other call was to my friend at J.P. Morgan, who was then, I didn't know it at the time, trying to buy Bear Stearns. So at one point, I had two phones. It was difficult because they're afraid people are going to hang themselves with the phone cord. So they don't actually come together and they're pretty short. So I was actually going between two phones talking to Bear Stearns and J.P. Morgan at the same time. So I found it amusing.
And it never struck you about how to end up in a situation like this?
No, that would be probably means I would be too self-aware.
You can't possibly expect me to believe this.
I know. I don't believe it.
It's no.
Even
You're telling me that during that day, you never had a moment. You sat there and go, "What the fuck have I done with my life? That I'm in a 6x9 jail cell."
How can he think about being in a jail cell when he just got off the phone with a connection that he single-handedly, you could say, helped the financial crisis of Wall Street, as well as he just got off the phone with the owner of J.P. Morgan, or should I say a connection at J.P. Morgan? Like, how could you be in a depressed state of mind when you have all these business connections on the outside that could A, bail you out, or even B, when you get out of this particular place, you're still a very wealthy man with these same connections. How could you be in a depressed state of mind saying, how the fuck did I get myself here? Or how could I get myself caught or anything? Did you really get caught doing anything? You know what I mean? It's more so, I get where Jeffrey's coming from as far as, why would I be upset? What the fuck do I have to be upset for? Especially since, in my mind, or should I say, what you don't know, the interviewer, is this is all a simulation, and I'm not really in jail.
When I should be on a trading desk, or I should be in my $250 million, greatest townhouse in New York City, taking calls from the King of Saudi Arabia, the President of China, the head of Russia, the President of the United States, to save the world's population from a financial debacle. You honestly expect me to believe that never happened?
You're suggesting I was somewhat depressed, and how could this happen to me?
I'm not saying depressed. I'm saying a moment of awareness of how could I get myself into this situation.
No, I would just say how strange that this happens. It's strange. I'm wearing a jumpsuit and flip-flops.
What color was the jumpsuit?
Brown.
Brown jumpsuit.
Yes.
I notice I don't see you in a lot of brown.
No.
Brown jumpsuit and flip-flops.
Flip-flops, yes.
With no access to books, no access to newspapers,
no access to anything.
You had lived on information.
Except my Almond Joy bars. I had extra Almond Joy bars.
Did you eat Almond Joy bars and things like that because you're afraid of what the cooks did to your food?
Yes.
Is that because of that you were in for the crimes that you were in for?
No, it was just in fact, I was.
Is it because you're wealthy?
Yes.
How did you know that?
Well, people would constantly come if I was passing by, or I'd have to go for my medical. People would either ask to borrow money or make some other types of comments about.
In
the beginning,
what were the comments? At the beginning, what were the comments?
It serves you fucking rich guys right that you're here next to me.
There was nothing about your crimes.
No.
So all this rumor you hear all the time about people in prison that commit the type of crimes you commit, you're saying in your personal thing is not true.
No.
It was all because you were rich.
Yes.
And it was all because they wanted to borrow money.
Or get advice. Yes.
Where they get advice to
Which
to
stock
go long, to go
which-
long.
yes,
Are you telling me
is this time to buy?
You're telling me in solitary confinement they're interested in going long?
Yeah. They want to know
What does that say
stocks.
about human nature?
Well, what I think the people find, one of the reasons they wanted to keep me in solitary confinement was they're afraid that everybody would want to know which stocks to buy. But what happened was, after this crisis, now it's on the front page of every newspaper.
I don't want to lose this day.
Sorry.
When you first heard that, was it Bear Stearns had been kicked into bankruptcy, what, 6 months before?
No, this is the same time. This is part of the same deal.
I thought, no. Bear Stearns, they saved Bear Stearns and didn't save Lehman Brothers. That's
right.
it.
They
6 months before they had bailed out Bear Stearns, but Bear Stearns was still a zombie,
A shell of its former
a
self.
former self. But they had quote unquote saved him. They admit. Why did they make the decision in your mind? Why did Hank Paulson in Bernanke what's this concept of moral hazard? Explain to the audience what moral hazard is, and why did they save Bear Stearns 6 months before, and why did the smartest guys in the room decide not to save Lehman Brothers?
It's a good question. The real issue is I'd have to go back when you have these systems to the way your doctor responds to any type of emergency in your body. If they might decide to save your kidneys and let your gallbladder go, because the gallbladder is less important to your overall system. If at that time, even it's not that long ago, the boogeyman was when said, well, what really happened? Jeffrey, what really happened? What is this financial crisis? And, some of the progressives and the right wing blame it on the banks. It was the banks' fault. And it's the fault of this very esoteric, unknown concept of derivatives. It was really the derivatives that caused this financial crisis, because the derivatives got somehow out of control and in the Mickey Mouse.
And that was the way you started your road to a billionaire went right through derivatives.
Yes. But derivatives were not the cause. Derivatives were not the cause at all. It's like saying your hair was the cause of your heart attack because it was on top of your head.
So what was the
down.
cause?
There isn't, let me say, there's no one specific cause. These are system collapses. So many times when they have to make your death certificate, when you say, well, what did he die from? They'll say heart failure. But if you say, what was the cause of his heart failure? Well, he had low blood pressure, his sugar was high, he was diabetic, he had all these other problems. They say, no, we need a word on your death certificate. Did he die from brain damage? Did he die from heart failure? That's the financial crisis. Many people said, well, what caused it? They wrote, like on its death certificate, derivatives. But derivatives were not a fundamental, derivatives are not a fundamental cause of anything.
Was it Sunday or Monday? I take it was Monday morning when you made your two collect calls and you were talking to Bear Stearns on one hand and Morgan Stanley on the other.
JP Morgan.
JP Morgan. That was Monday morning.
So, right, ain't no way a single hair in his head get touched. That's what I'm saying. Like, just even the knowledge of the hand gestures that he had even during the interviews, right? And how he keeps doing this. That's why I paused it on this part right here. He's not just fixing his glasses just to fix his glasses. He's not doing it. That is the one-eye cover-up. That is the one-eyed symbolism cover-up he keeps doing in the camera. But I'm just listening to this guy, and I'm like, there's no way he didn't plan his own death. There's just no fucking way he didn't plan his death. From the first time he got locked up. Think about that. This is post the first time he got locked up. There's no way that from the first time he got locked up, he didn't learn on how he could fake his own death in the event of. I guarantee, just listening to him, I can see how he was literally planning all these years in the event of he would have to fake his death. You could literally hear it.
Did you, Jeffrey, being one of the financial geniuses in the world, did you understand what Lehman Brothers going into bankruptcy, the domino effect, that by Thursday the financial system would be under such extremis that if it didn't have $1 trillion cash infusion in the United States, it might collapse? Did you know that at the time? Did you view that at the time?
Yes.
You did?
Yeah.
Why?
Again, I don't want to bore you or the audience with the idea of it's a medical procedure, but you had system failures. So you'd recognize that if I said to you, did you realize when your father was on the ground and he was clutching his chest and he couldn't breathe, it was a bad situation, he could die. That's how I saw it.
Did you immediately think about the commercial paper market? I mean, the mechanical triggers that actually you had to blow through these circuit boards. Did you know the circuits? Did you understand the circuits? Or did you have a concept of the circuits that were going to get blown through?
Yes, but only because of an analogy to a body. And in fact, from my telephones against the wall with my little metal wires, because the next day I talked to another person in Washington about the issues of what I thought was happening, and I made the same discussion about the...
They were at the Treasury Department?
Yes.
So in a 6x9 cell in...
The phones were outside the cell.
In Palm Beach County, California?
West Palm Beach, Florida.
West Palm Beach, Florida.
That's what your juice diet.
West Palm Beach, Florida. West Palm Beach, Florida. West Palm Beach, Florida. You're making a call to Washington, D.C. to talk to some deputy secretary of Treasury.
Someone in Treasury.
Right. Someone in Treasury.
Right.
And that does not, the night before you go to bed, it doesn't dawn on you at all. You never have a moment of self-reflection that, how did I end up on this metal cot when I should be at the center of things?
No, I had a telephone, so I said, I can talk to, it makes no difference where I am. In fact, I'm still talking to the same person if I was at my home in Palm Beach. But I'm here in jail.
Home in Palm Beach.
I can dial my own phone.
That's bullshit. No, but you can also make 1,000 phone calls. Here you got to make one, and he's got to take.
Think how much better that was. I had to decide who was the right person to call. That was unusual for me, because I would have called 20 people.
And what was the advice you gave?
I said, you have a sick patient, and it's very much like a sick patient in the emergency room. You can't think about it like your car. People in normal walks of life think about money and things as a machine. And unfortunately, so if your car breaks, cars are always easy to fix. My jets, my cars, if it breaks, I know it can be fixed because it simply follows the same pattern. If this part breaks, you replace the part and the thing works again. People and the financial system are not machines. They can't be fixed the same way. You can't simply take out put some more juice into the commercial paper market, and that's like replacing the carburetor on the car. It's much more, I have a patient system. Where's the most logical place? What's the most dangerous place? If your heart stopped, we have to start your heart again. In the equivalent to the money market, why do I have to start your heart again? I need to get your blood flowing. If your blood stops, you're dead. If liquidity, which is the equivalent of blood in the financial system, dries up.
Once liquidity is basically cash, putting cash into the
system. Forget about what it is.
Okay.
Liquidity is liquidity. It allows the system, it's the blood of the system. You need to pump blood hard into the body of the economy to keep it flowing. And if you're, especially when you're worried about someone dying, you're not going to be worried about the niceties of, well, you got the shirt dirty and there was some damage. Pump in that blood, keep that heart pumping.
When you talked to the person in Treasury on Tuesday the 16th, did you get a feeling as you were sitting in your 6x9 jail cell in West Palm Beach, Florida, that they were on top of things?
No, you can't. It's impossible to be on top of things. There's no such thing. It's, again, the doctor watching the patient die, you hopefully have some confidence that he's seen it before. He recognizes that there are some steps he has to take first before he bandages the guy's finger or worries about what shoes he has on. So you hope that the people in charge, your doctors who are working on the emergency patient, have enough experience and, frankly, judgment to try to keep the patient alive.
Did you think that they had those things, patience and judgment?
They had pretty good judgment, and you needed a lot of luck, just like in the dead patient. You need to Hopefully you put that blood in and it's not too late.
You need a lot of luck, just like the dead patient. Yo, not only am I hearing how he planned his death, but you are literally hearing inside knowledge on how these hospitals even think. He's literally breaking down to you how doctors' mind frames work, how nurses' mind frames work. He's literally telling you how unsure majority hospitals even are on not only keeping you alive, but just healing you in general. The whole system of hospitals is based upon unsurety. But it profits off of that unsurety as well. But the main trick of the magician is that you don't know what I know. That's interesting there. He's literally telling you the trick of all these magicians, banks, hospitals alike. You don't know what I know. And that's why you pay me. Because you think I'm helping you.
And you maybe
Similar to what he has done for all his connections.
you make some mistakes, but you have to know you're going to have to give it a shock.
In the run-up to the September crash of 2008,
Yeah.
I guess you weren't occupied with finance. That whole summer, how long had you been in jail?
Went to jail June 30th.
So the entire summer.
Yes.
Before you went into jail, you were still very active in the financial markets.
Yes.
When I say active, you trade currencies every day, you trade stocks every day. When people,
I don't do any-
someone like you, or you give advice to people to trade stocks or trade currencies.
I don't trade every day. I think that's, like Woody Allen said, you can't beat the bank. So I try to pick my spots. George Soros picked his spot when the pound collapsed. This would have been a great money-making opportunity that passed me by when I was in jail, but that's not how I think.
In the run-up to that, in the spring of 2008, that's when Bear Stearns got in problems, I think, in the spring of 2008, and they decided to bail it out. Did the Bear Stearns guys talk to you for advice at that time, when the big crisis in Bear Stearns?
No, but see, again, unbeknownst to most people, and it's easy to blame people for the financial crisis, like you'd blame someone for giving your father the drink before he had his heart attack. But what really happened, the real enemy of the finance system was Bill Clinton. And if you ask me what and who caused the financial crisis, I would tell you it was Bill Clinton.
Because of what Bob Rubin and he did to deregulate the financial system?
No. Because as of the last time we had our 60-minute interview, you talked to me about home ownership. And you asked me whether everyone should own a home. And I told you no, it's too risky.
So the financial collapse of 2008 is because of hardworking African Americans, Hispanics, and whites who wanted to have a ownership stake in the society that all rests on their shoulders. They're the culprits.
No, not at all.
Okay, then
I didn't say they were the culprits. I was pretty clear it was Bill Clinton.
Okay.
Why was it Bill Clinton? Because Bill Clinton wanted to get votes from those people. And he sold them the idea that instead of renting in a house, and historically the values of houses have gone up, and he said, you guys in these local communities who haven't been able to afford a house before, I'm going to show you a way. I'm going to give you a way because I'm sure I'll get your vote that you can own a house because I want your vote.
Wow. 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 So manipulating the middle and poor class to pretty much invest more money into the higher upper class by making them think that they could be like them. Thus, you created more debt for the average citizen. Wow. It's that ain't the biggest form of government hustle. I don't know what is. But he's literally telling y'all the same things that y'all have thought about for years in terms of why mortgages exist and interest rates and things of that nature. It is all a manipulation system to make you think you could be on the same level as the quote unquote higher ups, but you never will be. Exactly. Pumping on the chest of a person's already choking. Very interesting he's breaking all this stuff. But this is why they had to silence this guy. This is exactly why they silenced this guy. He pretty much he had already let everything the fuck out. We just didn't pay attention.
So what we're going to do is I'm going to let you buy a house, Mr. Bannon, when you really, you're right on the border, maybe, or not even on the border. Your credit is not good. Okay, let's be honest. And it's not my fault, it's not Bill Clinton's fault, but whatever happens, at the moment your credit score or whatever it is, your credit's not good. Now, normally, you come to me and want to borrow money, I'm a bank, and I say, I'm sorry, Mr. Bannon, I can't lend you money because your credit score is not up to where it needs to be. Hopefully, if you work harder and clean up some of your problems, it will be. But no, what I say to you is, I'm going to figure out a way to lend you, not give you. I'm going to lend you money anyway, though you don't have a good credit score. And don't worry, I'm going to get rid of the term that you don't have bad credit. Bad credit sounds pejorative. You don't want to be a person.
Sounds judgmental.
Yeah, sounds judgmental. So what we're going to do is we're going to call your credit situation subprime. Oh, nobody knows what that means. Subprime. That means prime is good credit. Subprime is not good credit, less than good credit. So we'll call it something that people really won't follow, and we'll tell you what. We're going to have people lend you money though you are a subprime borrower, and I will figure out some government agencies to guarantee your loan, though I don't think you're a good risk. So the banks say, no, we don't want, initially, the banks say, sorry, this is too risky, Mr. President, for us. We're in the business of managing risk. It's not our money. It's the hard-working people's money sitting in our bank. We can't lend to people whose credit is not prime. You're asking us to lend to people who are subprime. And he says, here's the key, if you don't, Mr. Bannon, I'm going to make sure the Justice Department charges you with discriminatory lending because you refuse to lend to my subprimers. In business terms, you should never lend to. But what we'll do is I'm going to form an agency called Fannie Mae and Ginnie Mae, just another agency names. They'll guarantee your loan. So don't worry. Don't worry. You don't have to pay it back anymore. Even though and maybe you don't even have to work as hard anymore. That's probably a harsh statement, but these players, these two big firms, Fannie Mae, will guarantee the fact that that bank will receive its money. Now, the bank says, wow, best deal in history. I refused to lend to Mr. Bannon, but now he has the big brother his Uncle Sam. He went to his Uncle Sam, and Uncle Sam says, I'm guaranteeing it. The bank says, I want everybody. Give me as many people as you can give me. Because Uncle Sam is the best credit in the world. Not only it's the United States government. We'll take it all. We'll take as much subprime as we can handle, because it's the best investment for the moment. It's a strange investment because it has politics that has inserted its way into the numbers. Politics doesn't belong in the markets. But now we're going to have, I want the votes. We'll make guarantees that you who can't get a house normally will be able to get a house from the bank. The bank says, this is the best deal in history. We will package 100, 300, 1,000 of you subprimers, and we'll sell it off to somebody else. And the whole system becomes mired in subprime mortgages. That's becomes the issue.
What do you mean mired? There's just too much supply. It's a supply-demand problem. You get too much supply?
No, it's a very good question. What does too much supply mean? Well, then you get to people, go back to your first question to me. Government leaders. Government leaders know if they're good, and they can do mathematics, they can balance their checkbooks. So certain people in Congress said, well, how do you value these subprime mortgages? The banks say, we've been valuing them the same way we've always valued them for the past 20 years. The accounting firms, there's something in this country called GAAP accounting, which is a standard type of accounting. And we account for them the same way we've always accounted for them. If we paid $1,000 for your mortgage last night, when we put it on our books today, we're going to say its value is $1,000. It makes sense. I paid for it what's its value? It's $1,000. That's what I paid for it last night. No. The Congress people said, that's not really a good answer, you know. That doesn't give us confidence that you know what you're doing. Because what happens if you have to sell it tomorrow morning? If something's happened and you have to sell it. Remember, there's kinds of stress tests. Would you be able to value it at what you paid for it the day before? And Wall Street says, that's not the way you can think about this. This is crazy. We always value things at the cost from the day before. And they changed the accounting method. In essence, to say, not what it was worth yesterday, but if I have to sell, what would it be worth? That's impossible. So what happens is, every bank now has to value something they bought yesterday at lower than they paid. Never before in 20 years did they have to do this. So something they bought at 1,000, on their books was 1,000, is now 990. That starts to, you asked the question about what did I start to think about.
So there is, like I said, another part of this interview, but that got into just enough meat and potatoes, I think, for us. That got into just enough meat and potatoes for us, I think. Exactly. When you make up shit, you can just keep making up shit. Because if the general public doesn't actually know, number one, that you're A, making up shit. B, they don't know initially the ins and outs. Like he said before, he broke down a simple example of the calculator. You don't necessarily know how the calculations even arrive to where they are, right? You don't know how they get the actual results. You can't break down the actual mathematical equations. Or should I say, you can't break down the actual equations it did to do the mathematical equation in the calculator. You can't even figure out that part. And we invented it. Same way we created these banks, we created these hospitals. We don't necessarily know how they work, but because you don't either, we are able to manipulate the rules and regulations that you have to follow by in order to be a part of our system. it's crazy. Like I said, he literally broke down how the world works. Not just government. He broke down how the fucking world works in just that little hour. On our next pod, we will break down, I should say we will be reacting and looking at the full Jeffrey Epstein interview where he talks about a lot more things, as well as he gets deep into quantum physics and how the soul works and things of that nature as well.